What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we want to do something fun and unique and have Rachel review an album that I really enjoyed from 2023 and give her a unique perspective on it as someone who enjoys metal but doesn't quite obsess about it the same way that I do.
That's an understatement.
So yeah, we're going to jump right into it. The album we're going to be talking about today is Order of Decay's Mortification Rites. This is a death doom album from 2023. We listened to it on the way up here, and why don't you give us your thoughts?
Well, first, let me just say, to say that I don't like metal as much as Ryan is just an absolutely insane understatement. I am extremely picky about what metal I listen to, what metal I like. I have to be in the right mood. I don't like to listen to metal in the morning. You know, I just have a lot of parameters around the type of metal that I enjoy versus don't enjoy. So when Ryan said we were going to review a Doom album, I was like, and so luckily, in my opinion, this album has, minimal Doom elements. I know that it's Death Doom. When we were listening to it, I think we were maybe in track 2, and I was like, so, like, what about this is Doom? And I do, like, there are moments in the album where I'm like, you really hear that influence, but throughout, I think, to me, I'm hearing more death metal influence. Definitely I think track 3 just, like, pretty much straight up sounds like a black metal song until the outro, which I wasn't a super fan of. We'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, I was reluctant to listen to and review a Doom album, but I was pleasantly surprised. I did really like this album. Although I thought the name of the album and some of the song names were,
Rotten.
a little try-hard. I think one of the songs is called Necrotic, which is just disgusting. No one wants to listen to that. No one wants to think about it. It's rotten. So, funnily enough, that track, I think it's track number 6, was tracks 4 and 5 kind of were like losing me a little bit. The beginning of track 6 was like, eh. And then by the end of it, I was like drawn right back in. So, hated the song name. Actually kind of like the song. But let's go way back to the beginning. The album starts with like an organ passage. And it's pretty much like just everything that you would ever want to listen to at any point in time. It sounds like you're in a castle. I think the band is from Scotland. So, they could be like in the moors of Scotland in like a rotting castle, and that's like exactly the imagery that I feel like the beginning is sort of evoking. And that's kind of the ambiance that you're introduced to in the first 2 songs, really. And I really liked the vibe that they were putting out. Track 3, like I said, was a little bit more of like just, it sounded more like a black metal song, which I still enjoyed, but I felt like that's where they're starting to like lose the ambience a little bit, and I just didn't like those songs as much. They were fine, but it was like, I felt like when you're making an album that has ambient elements, when you introduce an album so strongly, I'm like expecting that to be the vibe throughout the whole album, and they just kind of like lose touch of that. I felt like they wrote the songs and they were like, these are great songs, let's include them on this album. But then they have track 7 and 8, which are, I feel like, a perfect mirror of tracks 1 and 2, and they could have just taken those and made like a great EP and done the middle songs as like just a separate project.
I don't personally think they're that different in
They're
tone.
different.
Yeah, in tone and atmosphere.
There's elements that are the same. It sounds, and like one of the things that I did like about the album is that it's super varied. It's not samey at all. Throughout the album and even throughout the songs, there's a lot of different elements that keep it interesting. There's fast parts, there's slower parts. The vocals are like, S tier. That's good. That's the good tier, right?
That's the good tier.
But I feel sort of like you could probably put death metal vocals on any type of music, and I would probably like it. I don't listen to death metal on its own, like, pretty much ever. I wouldn't say, like, I'm a huge death metal fan, but I absolutely love when other subgenres in metal have death metal influence. That's, like, to me, perfection. So that's why I feel like I really liked this album, and it really resonated with me in terms of like new metal albums.
And I mean, to be fair, there's a legitimate question of, is death doom a subgenre of doom, or is it kind of just its own thing? Is it a subgenre of death metal? So I mean, that could be what's going on. I did call it a Doom album going in, and I probably would still stick to that, saying it's my favorite Doom album. But I mean, it certainly draws elements from death metal and even black metal, and probably dark ambient too, which is the part, or rather, the parts of the album that you didn't really care for. But
Yeah. Okay, so I believe at the end of track 3 and the end of track 5, but I could be wrong, there's 2 longer, like, ambient outros. And like I said, I feel like those were the tracks that were sort of veering away from, like, the ambient elements that were introduced throughout tracks 1 and 2, and also really heavily in track 8. And I feel like they were just like, oh, we have to make this fit on the album, so, like, put that outro on there and people will get it. And I get it, but I hated it. So
yeah, so she's picky, like she said.
yeah,
I guess I'm just sort of used to that sort of like self-indulgent stuff in metal, where I don't know, you draw from a lot of different styles to kind of get the vibe you're going for. And again, like I said earlier, I really don't think the middle tracks are that different in tone from the first and last tracks, but maybe
They are.
yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just completely missing something.
I'm picky. I'm also really picky about mixing and, like, how loud certain things are in the mix. I felt like this album had absolutely perfect mixing. Like, this is one of the best mixed albums I've ever heard. Every single layer was was perfectly positioned. Nothing was outshining the other. Everything just came together and made, like, a perfect cohesive song. Even, like, the moments of guitar solo were not, like, self-serving. It was, like, just adding to the vibe of the overall song. There was no, to me, when I listen to this album, it seems like all of these musicians, I know that it's an anonymous project, but whoever worked on this, how many band members are there?
I don't even know. I would guess 4. It's an anonymous project. I don't think I mentioned that.
So it seems like they all really had a super clear vision. They weren't trying to prioritize one part of the music over the other, and that I really, really like that. I thought the production was just, like, incredible. I think I said it, like, during song 1 when we were listening.
Yeah, it was pretty early in the album, and I would agree with that too. I don't think I would ever want an album to sound better than this. It's got the perfect blend of sort of murkiness and clarity. I think that's right where metal needs to be.
So I have said a lot of positive things about the album, but there were things that I didn't like, or choices that I'm just like, why would you do that? For example, track 7 out of an 8-track album should have been track 7 and 8 should have been switched. Track 8 might be my favorite song on the whole album, but it's not a strong closer in my opinion. I feel like track 7, which is just, like, sort of an ambient interlude. There's organs, it's vibey, it's really good. You feel like you're being escorted out of someone's castle. And I feel like if they would have switched 7 and 8, it would have been, like, the perfect way to just wrap up this world that they've temporarily immersed you in. They didn't. They dropped the ball. So that's one thing that I don't know, it took me out of it. I was talking about it a lot. Something else that I did love, like the double bass. The drums on the album in general I thought were really great. I loved pretty much any time that there was double bass. I just loved double bass in general. I'm a child of, the mid 2000s deathcore, and that's where my heart remains.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first time she turned to me and said, "I do like this," was a double pick part in like track 2 or something.
Yeah.
Luckily, there is plenty of that on this album.
Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about was there was this effect on the guitars, or I don't know. It was something was going on in track 2. I think it was, like, about halfway through the song, where it literally sounded like you were wearing a metal, like, helmet, and someone took, like, a flail and just hit you on your helmet, and it was like reverberating in your helmet, and that is, like, what the song sounded like at that point. And the drums during that time kind of sounded like galloping hoofbeats. That's a really strong song. I think my favorites are between tracks 2 and 8, and they honestly, to me, have a really different feel, but they're still, like, two parts of a whole. But I was, like, super, super impressed by that part. I felt like it was super immersive. It was very unique, and it just sounded so cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought I was going to complain more about this album, but I actually, like, I really liked it. We listened to tracks 4, 5, and 6 again after we finished the whole album. And I think one of the things that I didn't like between tracks 5 and 6 maybe was that, like, there was a long time between vocals. and I'm a vocals person, I'm a lyric person. I hated that I could not find lyrics to this album, because how do I know if you're appropriately conveying what you're trying to say through the emotions of the music if I don't know what you're actually trying to say? So post the lyrics, please, if you're in Order of Decay and you're watching this, or just email them to me. I don't know. I need to see them. But overall, I think, that was maybe what was getting a little boring to me. But I still really like the album, and that's all I've got. I feel like we've talked a lot.
I feel like you're better at this than I am.
I'm known to yap. So let us know if you guys liked this. If you have an album that you would suggest that we review together.
That's a fun one.
Like I said, I have a lot of opinions. I can be extremely critical when it comes to metal, so I'm happy to give my very strong opinions if you've got an album you think we should review.
And yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.
Comment, subscribe,
She's
do
right.
all of the things.
She's right. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. Have a good one.